Back in a world before iPhones and iPads and watches and streaming online video, there was the iPod. And this is my first iPod and pretty much my first Apple product. It is the 20 gigabyte iPod Photo released in late 2004. So this thing is actually older than YouTube. The biggest feature upgrade with this iPod was that it had, for the first time ever, a color display, which meant that you could load your photos and your album artwork onto it using a super clunky iTunes interface, and then you could look at them on this little screen right here.
We're introducing a new iPod called iPod Photo. And as you can see, it looks the same except for a color screen.
And this thing lived with me. I cannot tell you how many hours I spent listening to music being played off of this iPod all the way up until the day it died. I was driving to work with my iPod connected to my car's stereo through a little cassette tape adapter, listening to I Can Hear You by They Might Be Giants, which is a song recorded entirely on Thomas Edison's old wax recorder. And the song's basically about like the futility and absurdity of modern technology. And that is a song that was playing when my iPod's hard drive just completely crashed and died and has not turned on ever since. Jump ahead more than a decade later to today, and it is now my goal to bring this little iPod Photo back to life. To do this, I've got a replacement hard drive that I was able to find on eBay for about $20. This is just a 20 gigabyte Toshiba hard drive. It's basically the exact same drive that came with the original iPod. I'm sure that I could do something super cool and replace it with like a really high capacity SSD. But since I've never done this kind of repair before, I figured I'm just gonna stick with like parts and swap one for the other exactly as it was when I bought the iPod. Since the iPod has just been sitting in a box for so many years, I also figured that the battery might need some replacement, so I ordered a battery replacement kit from iFixit. This is not sponsored, but I think this is actually pretty cool. Ultimately, for under $40, I'm hoping to bring this thing back to life. The brand new hard drive, brand new battery. And replacing the hard drive and the battery use two separate guides on iFixit. That's what I'm using for reference. The battery replacement seems to be a little more complex than the hard drive replacement, so my goal is to start with the battery first and then do the hard drive as I'm kind of reassembling the iPod. In the parts container was a new battery for the iPod and a quick instruction manual on how to calibrate it once it is installed. There's also this thing that looks like a guitar pick that is supposed to be a part to start popping the iPod apart. The first step for both repairs is to remove the rear panel. So this little thing just fits right under here, and then you just start sort of popping the casing apart. Oh, totally worked. So the guide says that once the case is open, not to separate them all the way because there's still a small orange cable that is connecting the headphone jack to the logic board. Obviously that headphone jack is still really important. Oh, that was like ridiculously easy. And now that that has popped out, I can separate the two halves of the rear half and the front half. Just pop the hard drive out. There we go. So now to replace the battery, there's a small battery cable that I need to unplug right in here. Got it. Whew. So then I gotta remove these two screws that are holding the logic board to the case. Things are so much easier when you just have the right tools and you're not trying to make weird stuff work that's not supposed to work. And the battery cable runs under the end of the logic board, so I need to take this out, pop in the new battery, re-thread the cable, and then plug it back in, and I guess that should be it. This battery does not contain mercury. Cool. Oh, there we go. Ooh. So now I've got the front of the iPod with no battery and no hard drive. This thing is clearly from a time when Apple devices were a lot more modular than they are now. The fact that I can actually repair stuff pretty easily, kind of crazy. This is the battery that came from iFixit. The cables seem to be kind of different lengths, so I'm having a little bit of a struggle making them fit the way they should fit. The next step is just to connect the ribbon back into the new hard drive. There we go. Just popped right in. Hard drive sits there. Both new parts should now be installed. And then we just sort of reverse the steps. That's kind of it. I guess we just pop the iPod all the way back together. Oh, there it goes. Look at that. All right, I have found two interesting bits of history. First, the old school 30-pin connector cable. I also found the AC adapter that came with this iPod. Let's plug it in and power it on, or at least try to power it on. Oh, the Apple logo is there. It says apple.com/support/iPod to apple.com/support/iPod. I think I'm gonna have to do something I haven't done in a very long time, which is open up iTunes. So let's try a different tactic here. Instead of the AC adapter, let's plug this guy directly into the computer. Here we go. Once I plugged it into the computer, it actually recognized it. It says do not disconnect. So it's turning on. Like the hard drive is trying to do something. But up in the upper left corner, it does have a battery charging icon that's flashing. So it makes me think the battery's actually charging. Oh, there's a little iPod. Welcome to my new iPod. It thinks I bought a new iPod. I don't remember how to use an iPod. Oh, good. There's a software update I need to install from August of 2006. Seems like it's actually doing it, though. The hard drive is showing up just as a hard drive, like as a regular hard drive. So it turns out it was a formatting issue. What I ended up doing after I formatted it, it didn't work, and I unplugged the iPod, and then I plugged it back in, and when iTunes opened up, it said, it looks like your iPod is corrupt, do you want to restore it? So I clicked yes, and then that restore process worked. The next thing it asked me to do was plug into an external power source, and when I did that, as soon as I did that, before I could even turn the camera back on, the screen lit up. The click wheel isn't working though. Ruh-roh. That's a problem. The screen is lit up though. I don't know why the click wheel isn't working now. My hope is that maybe it just came disconnected or something really simple. So I'm gonna try opening up the iPod again. On the inside, these little controls right here are all for the click wheel, and they have this little ribbon that kind of runs along the outside and connects right here. My worry is that, I don't know if I move the battery or what, and if it messed these things up. So to see what the deal is, I'm gonna try something a little strange. I'm going to plug the new hard drive in, the new and correctly formatted hard drive in. I'm gonna plug in the battery, and while it's disassembled, just see if I can get anything to work. I hear the hard drive spinning, but the click wheel isn't clicking. I thought the click wheel was bad, and it could be, but in the top of the LCD, there's the little lock icon, which means that the hold switch, the iPod is thinking the hold switch is on. I have no idea when this became a problem. I have two options right now. The first is I'm gonna try to clean this up. Maybe it's just dirty, and if I put some contact cleaner on it, it'll fix the switch. Or if this part somehow went bad, I think I can find another one online for a couple of dollars and then try to just replace this part. So let's start by cleaning it. I had this problem with my guitars a few times. Sometimes the switches sound crackly or don't work, and if you just spray this and kind of work it into the switch, it cleans all the gunk out, cleans everything out, and then you can get a good signal. The switch can make a good signal and good contact. And this stuff's kind of interesting because you spray it on, you work it in, and then it just evaporates. So it's not like you have to wipe it out or it doesn't leave any residue. The next step is to just reattach this ribbon, and this should now be ready to reconnect to the front of the iPod. So now when I plug it into an external power source, the display turns right on. It is locked, the lock is still there, and if I switch it, it is still there. So the problem is that the iPod seems to be working, it's ready to be all set up, but it won't let me use the control, the click wheel, because it thinks that it is locked. My fix didn't work, so the next solution is to go to the old internet and see if I can get a replacement part and then wait for that to be delivered. It took a few days, it's actually been about a week, but I received this, which I ordered online for about $6 from a parts website, and it is a brand new to me headphone jack, hold switch, connector. It actually only took about 5 minutes to install. I just had to disconnect the old connector, undo a couple of screws, put in the new one, and then the iPod was working just like new. I don't currently have any music loaded onto it, but everything is working great. Apparently, it's actually a pretty common problem that after a while the hold switch starts to give out on these. So even though I installed everything, the new battery and the new hard drive correctly on mine, the hold switch was just set to lock no matter what. And so by replacing it now, I can unlock and lock the iPod and everything works. And most importantly, I can go back in and play all of these sweet games, my favorite of which was Brick. It's kind of sad to think how many hours I spent doing this, but it was so much fun. The scroll wheel on the iPod makes everything real fun, and I missed. To be fair, I was playing while looking at a screen of an overhead camera, so not the best way to play your games. Now the last thing to do is to see if we can actually get this thing to play music, see if the headphone jack works. I haven't tested out that just yet. This is the most I've used iTunes in the past 10 years. As soon as I plugged in the iPod, it put on the old do not disconnect icon warning me to leave it alone. And then the computer goes through the welcome to your new iPod setup screens. Let's see, capacity 18.6 gigabytes remaining, fantastic. I think it's only fitting that the first song I try loading onto the iPod is I Can Hear You by They Might Be Giants, since that's the song it was playing when it died, a decade ago. All right, it says that it has one song on there, which is that song. So it's time to pull out my trusty white Apple earbuds because it's kind of like the appropriate way to listen to an old iPod. Music. Songs. I only have the one song. It's working. I can't believe it. It's completely playing. I'm listening to music on my iPod. Wow. It's like a wave of nostalgia. I can't believe that. That makes me so happy that this thing is working. I didn't expect to care quite as much as I do. Now that this thing is restored and working just like new, there's one last thing I would like to do. The back of these iPods, if you ever owned one of these, you will remember that these things scratch just by looking at them. When you pull them out of the box, this beautiful mirrored, polished stainless steel, and then within a day, it would be crazy scratched up. So I actually already made a video about how to use this silver polish on a stainless steel Apple Watch. I've never used it on an iPod before, but I'm gonna give it a try and see if I can't make the back of this iPod look as good as new. Step one, of course, the rubber gloves. All right, start polishing. This is actually a lot easier to polish than the Apple Watch. Look at all the black that's already coming off there. Wow. Even the side, after just 20 seconds, already looks a lot better. All right, took a little bit of elbow polish, polished up my watch while I was at it. I didn't get it exactly perfect. It's not quite what it looked like when it first came out of the box, but it's looking pretty darn good for a 14, 15-year-old iPod that now, again, totally works. So in the end, I replaced the hard drive, the battery, and the headphone jack. The total repair cost was about $40, and it really didn't take that much time. The hardest part was just waiting for the headphone jack replacement to arrive. But the cool part is now this totally works. And that's something that's been kind of sticking with me a lot lately is a lot of new technology comes out. We're on these rapid release cycles, but the stuff that you buy, if you take care of it, is just as good as the day you bought it, always. So sometimes it's worth upgrading to a new thing, but other times the thing that you have is plenty good. And of course, sometimes upgrades do make a difference. When this iPod broke, I replaced it with the iPod Nano that was like this. I think these came out in 2007. And I really love this iPod because it was everything great about this one in just a smaller package with a solid state hard drive. So even though it's only 8 gigabytes, it was just a lot more reliable. And then I moved on to the smaller iPod Nano, the little clip ones. This was actually a super cool design too, and it was pre-Apple Watch, but you could buy these watch bands that were big and clunky, and the iPod actually just clipped into it. And then 5 or 6 years before the Apple Watch was a thing, you could suddenly wear your iPod as a watch. And really, if you look at it, it's kind of funny because the design isn't that different from the Apple Watch. So in the end, this was just sort of a fun experiment for me as I worked to fix something that was a huge part of my life. It was a super fun bit of nostalgia to go back to a world before streaming smartphones, before Apple made credit cards to just where it was a miracle to be able to carry 1,000 songs in your pocket.